In the final moments of Shibuya, when the King of Curses unleashed his domain expansion and reduced an entire city district to ash, the world watched in horror. Fans dissected every frame of Sukuna's battle against Mahoraga, analyzing the divine flame technique, counting the slashes, debating power scaling across forums and comment sections. But while millions focused on the spectacle of destruction, they missed something far more significant. Hidden within the choreography of that legendary confrontation was a technique so subtle, so brilliantly concealed, that it fundamentally changes our understanding of how Sukuna operates. This isn't about raw power. This is about a strategic manipulation that reveals the true gap between the King of Curses and every other being in Jujutsu Kaisen's universe. And once you see it, you'll never watch that fight the same way again. The battle between Sukuna and Mahoraga stands as one of the most visually stunning sequences in modern anime. Gege Akutami crafted this confrontation as a showcase of overwhelming force, a demonstration that even the most adaptive Shikigami in existence couldn't match the King of Curses at 15 fingers. On the surface, the narrative is straightforward. Mahoraga adapts to Sukuna's slashing attacks, forcing the King of Curses to unveil a technique the Divine General cannot counter in time. The Divine Flame, Fuga, incinerates Mahoraga and reshapes the Shibuya skyline. Victory for Sukuna. A tragic moment for Megumi, forced to watch as his trump card gets obliterated. The community accepted this reading, focusing their analysis on the flame technique itself, speculating about its origins, comparing it to Jogo's fire manipulation, wondering if it represented a cursed technique or something else entirely. But here's what everyone missed. Before Sukuna ever unleashed that iconic flame arrow, before he carved Mahoraga into pieces with dismantle, before the domain expansion that deleted city blocks, there was a moment. A single, easily overlooked exchange that occurred in the opening seconds of their confrontation. When Mahoraga first emerged from the shadows, when it threw its first strike at the King of Curses, Sukuna didn't just dodge. He didn't just block. He did something that no other sorcerer in the series has demonstrated the ability to do, something so fundamentally broken that Gege Akutami buried it beneath layers of visual spectacle to prevent it from overshadowing the entire arc. To understand what happened, we need to revisit the mechanics of Mahoraga's adaptation. The Divine General of the Ten Shadows technique doesn't simply develop resistance to attacks. It fundamentally alters its own cursed energy structure to neutralize phenomena it encounters. When Sukuna strikes with dismantle, Mahoraga doesn't grow thicker skin. It modifies the interaction between its cursed energy and the slashing technique, creating a buffer that renders subsequent attacks ineffective. This is why Mahoraga is considered the ultimate defensive Shikigami. It doesn't matter how powerful your technique is. Given enough time and enough contact, the Divine General will adapt. It will survive. And then it will kill you. This adaptation process requires exposure. Mahoraga's wheel must turn. The Shikigami must experience the phenomenon to understand it. This is the inherent limitation built into what would otherwise be an invincible ability. You get a window of opportunity. Strike fast enough, with enough overwhelming force, and you can destroy Mahoraga before adaptation completes. This is the conventional wisdom. This is what Sukuna appeared to be doing throughout their battle, cycling through variations of his slashing attacks, buying time, searching for the perfect killing blow. Except that's not what Sukuna was doing at all. Watch the sequence again. Frame by frame. In the opening exchange, when Mahoraga lunges forward with that devastating right hook, Sukuna raises his left hand. Not to block. Not to counter. He makes a gesture. His fingers move in a pattern that doesn't correspond to any hand sign we've seen before in the series. It's subtle. The animation doesn't linger on it. Your eye naturally follows Mahoraga's movement, the kinetic energy of the Divine General's attack. But Sukuna's hand is there, deliberate, precise. And in the next frame, something impossible happens. Mahoraga's adaptation wheel doesn't turn. It should have. The Divine General made contact with Sukuna's cursed energy. Even if the King of Curses dodged the physical strike, the proximity alone should have triggered the adaptation process. That's how Mahoraga works. That's how it survived Todo's Boogie Woogie, how it would later adapt to cleaving techniques during the battle. Constant, relentless evolution. But in that moment, the wheel remained static. Frozen. As if the adaptation mechanism itself has been suspended. This isn't an animation error. This isn't Gege Akutami forgetting his own power system. This is intentional. And it happens 3 more times during the battle, always preceded by that same hand gesture, always resulting in the same inexplicable pause in Mahoraga's evolution. Sukuna isn't overwhelming the divine general with power. He's manipulating the fundamental rule that makes Mahoraga dangerous. He's controlling when the Shikigami is allowed to adapt. The implications of this are staggering. Consider what adaptation represents in Jujutsu Kaisen's power system. It's an automatic defensive response encoded into Mahoraga's cursed energy structure. It's not conscious. It's not a technique the Shikigami chooses to activate. It simply is, an inherent property of its existence, like breathing or gravity. For Sukuna to suppress this process means he's interfering with the most fundamental level of cursed energy operation. He's not attacking Mahoraga. He's rewriting the rules that govern how cursed energy interacts with phenomena. This explains so much about Sukuna's behavior throughout the series. Remember his reaction when Jogo challenged him? The King of Curses didn't just defeat the disaster curse. He toyed with him, lectured him, treated the entire confrontation as an educational opportunity. At the time, fans interpreted this as arrogance, Sukuna's ego asserting dominance over a weaker opponent. But what if it was something else? What if Sukuna was testing the limits of this technique, experimenting with how far he could push reality manipulation before his opponent even realized they were being controlled? Look at the Yorozu fight in the Heian-era flashbacks. Sukuna spends the entire battle allowing her to showcase her construction technique, letting her build that perfect sphere, waiting patiently as she explains her strategy. Why? Not because he respected her as an opponent. Because he was studying how cursed energy constructs respond to his manipulation. He was gathering data, refining his understanding of the technique that would later let him shut down Mahoraga's adaptation. The hand gesture itself deserves deeper analysis. In traditional Buddhist mudras, specific hand positions channel and direct spiritual energy. Jujutsu Kaisen has always drawn from Buddhist and Shinto iconography, weaving religious symbolism into its cursed energy mechanics. Gojo's hand signs for limitless techniques reference actual esoteric practices. Sukuna's domain hand sign mirrors classical depictions of deities and demon kings. So when Sukuna forms that particular gesture during the Mahoraga fight, he's not just posing. He's invoking something. A principle. A law. A binding that exists at a level far deeper than what we typically call cursed techniques. Here's where it gets truly disturbing. If Sukuna can suppress Mahoraga's adaptation, what else can he manipulate? Can he interfere with domain expansions mid-activation? Can he prevent cursed techniques from manifesting entirely? The Heian-era flashbacks suggest he might. During the war against the sorcerers who attempted to kill him, there are moments where opponents simply stop functioning. Their techniques fail. Their cursed energy falters. The manga attributes this to Sukuna's overwhelming presence, his crushing aura. But what if it's literal? What if the King of Curses has been rewriting the fundamental operations of cursed energy throughout history, and everyone simply assumed it was raw power? This recontextualizes the entire Gojo versus Sukuna debate. For years, fans have argued about who would win in a direct confrontation. The arguments always center on domain clashes, limitless versus shrine, six eyes versus superior cursed energy control. But those debates assume both fighters operate under the same rules. If Sukuna possesses a technique that can interfere with the basic operation of cursed energy phenomena, then Gojo's infinity might not function as expected. The automatic activation, the mathematical certainty of limitless, all of it depends on cursed energy behaving according to established principles. Principles that Sukuna has demonstrated he can manipulate. It also explains why Kenjaku chose to feed Yuji to Sukuna specifically. The ancient sorcerer has lived for over 1,000 years, jumping between bodies, accumulating knowledge about every cursed technique in existence. He knew about Mahoraga. He understood the Ten Shadows technique's potential. And yet, he orchestrated events to ensure Sukuna's resurrection, even though the King of Curses represented an existential threat to his plans. Why? Because Kenjaku recognized that Sukuna possessed something beyond conventional power. A technique so fundamentally broken that even Kenjaku, with all his accumulated wisdom and stolen techniques, couldn't replicate it. Think about the implications for the culling game. Sukuna's ultimate goal involves Megumi's body and the Ten Shadows technique. Fans have theorized this connection for years, analyzing the strategic value of combining Sukuna's techniques with Mahoraga's adaptation. But the conventional theory assumes Sukuna wants to use Mahoraga normally, perhaps as a shield while he executes some grander plan. That never made sense. Why would the King of Curses, who just demonstrated he can obliterate Mahoraga, need the Divine General's protection? The answer is he doesn't want to use Mahoraga defensively. He wants to study the adaptation mechanism up close, from inside Megumi's cursed energy structure, to perfect the manipulation technique he used during their Shibuya battle. Imagine Sukuna with complete mastery over this ability. Imagine the King of Curses able to shut down any cursed technique, suppress any adaptation, rewrite any rule at will. He wouldn't just be the strongest. He would be the fundamental law that determines what strength means. Every other character in Jujutsu Kaisen operates within the boundaries of cursed energy mechanics. Sukuna operates as the exception, the administrator, the god who set the rules and can change them on a whim. This is why Gege Akutami hid this technique so carefully. If fans fully understood what Sukuna did against Mahoraga, every subsequent fight would feel hollow. How do you create tension when one character can simply turn off his opponent's abilities? How do you craft strategic battles when the ultimate trump card is reality manipulation? The answer is you bury it. You disguise it as dodging and timing. You draw the eye toward the spectacular divine flame and away from the subtle hand gesture that made victory inevitable from the start. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Go back and watch Sukuna's other fights with this knowledge. The moment against Ishigori where his granite blast inexplicably weakens. The instant during the Kashimo confrontation where the lightning's trajectory shifts without explanation. The split second in the Gojo fight where infinity seems to flicker, just barely, just enough to let a slash through. They are all there. Subtle. Buried beneath layers of action and dialogue. But present. Always present. The fingerprints of a technique that breaks the game. The tragic irony is that Megumi never understood what happened. He watched his ultimate Shikigami get destroyed, internalized it as evidence of his own weakness, his inability to match the King of Curses. He blamed himself for not being strong enough to control Mahoraga properly. But strength was never the issue. You can't overcome an opponent who rewrites the rules of engagement. You can't adapt to someone who controls adaptation itself. Megumi was never going to win that confrontation, not because he lacked power, but because Sukuna was playing a different game entirely. This revelation forces us to reconsider every power scaling discussion, every analysis of techniques and matchups that assumes a level playing field. Jujutsu Kaisen has always been about strategy, about clever use of abilities within established parameters. But Sukuna exists outside those parameters. He's not the strongest because he has the most powerful techniques. He's the strongest because he determines what power means. He's the referee who can change the score. The programmer who can edit the code while the game is running. And perhaps most chilling of all, this might not even be Sukuna's true cursed technique. The Shrine, Dismantle, Cleave, the Divine Flame, these are the abilities everyone knows about. The techniques recorded in history, the powers that made him the King of Curses. But this manipulation ability, this reality editing hand gesture, has no name. No one discusses it. It appears in no historical records. Which means either it's so secret that even in the Heian era, Sukuna never revealed it. Or it's not a technique at all. It's something else. Something that exists at a level beyond what the world of Jujutsu Kaisen calls cursed energy. The Buddhist concept of skillful means, or upaya, teaches that enlightened beings can manipulate reality itself to guide others toward truth. In esoteric traditions, the highest level masters don't just use power. They embody the principle that generates power. They become the source code. Sukuna's epithet, the King of Curses, suddenly takes on new meaning. Not just the strongest curse. The king. The sovereign. The one who rules over the domain and makes the laws. What we witnessed in Shibuya wasn't just a fight. It was a demonstration. Sukuna showing the world, showing us, that everything we think we understand about Jujutsu Kaisen's power system is provisional. It works because he allows it to work. And when he chooses, when it serves his purposes, he can reach into the fabric of that system and change it. Mahoraga's adaptation wheel didn't stop turning because Sukuna destroyed it. It stopped because the King of Curses commanded it to stop. And it obeyed. The horror of this realization compounds when you consider the future of the series. Every plan the protagonists create, every strategy they develop, all of it assumes they understand the rules. They study cursed techniques. They analyze patterns. They prepare counters. But how do you counter someone who can invalidate the premise of your counter? How do you plan around an opponent who exists as the exception to every rule? Gojo's ceiling bought time, but it also might have been the only thing keeping Sukuna from fully demonstrating this ability. With Gojo gone, with no one left who operates at that level of power, there's no one to pressure Sukuna into maintaining the illusion that is playing the same game as everyone else. The Mahoraga fight wasn't a warning. It was a glimpse. A momentary reveal of something far more terrifying than raw destructive power. It was the moment the King of Curses showed his hand, confident that no one would understand what they were seeing. And he was right. For years, fans analyzed that battle, breaking down every technique, every strategy, every moment of that spectacular confrontation. But they missed the forest for the trees. They saw the explosion and missed the hand that lit the fuse. This is the mark of a true masterpiece. Gege Akutami didn't just create a powerful character. He created a character whose true power is so fundamentally broken that it had to be hidden, disguised, buried beneath spectacle and misdirection. Sukuna's greatest technique isn't the one that destroys cities. It's the one that makes you forget techniques exist at all. It's the silent rewriting of reality, the invisible hand that guides every confrontation toward an inevitable conclusion. And now, knowing what we know, we have to watch the rest of the series with different eyes. Every Sukuna appearance becomes a puzzle. Every fight becomes a search for that subtle hand gesture, that momentary flicker when the rules change. We become detectives, hunting for evidence of manipulation in battles we thought we understood. The rewatch value of Jujutsu Kaisen just multiplied exponentially, because now we know what to look for. Now we understand that the King of Curses has been playing a different game from the start. This is why true masterpieces hide their greatest secrets in plain sight. They reward attention, reward analysis, reward the viewers who look beyond the spectacle to find the substance beneath. Gege Akutami didn't create Jujutsu Kaisen just to show us cool fights and interesting powers. He created a world with depth, with layers, with hidden mechanisms that fundamentally alter our understanding of what we've been watching. The secret technique Sukuna used against Mahoraga wasn't just a plot device. It was a statement. A declaration that in this world, at the highest level, power isn't about what you can destroy. It's about what you can control. And the King of Curses controls everything, including our perception of what's possible. And that's why true masterpieces hide their greatest secrets in plain sight.